Good evening and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. And we're going to discuss sports news now. In the latest stunning upset at the US Open, Jessica Pegula took advantage of an off night for Poland's Iga Świątek and eliminated the world #1 from the tournament. Meanwhile, Polish Paralympians are winning medal after medal in Paris. Joining us now to discuss the latest sports news is Jon Carter, TVP World sports correspondent. Good evening, Jon. Delighted to have you with us.
Good evening, Sally. Lovely to be here.
So is it a surprise that Świątek lost to Pegula?
I would say it is, because she's been playing pretty well at the US Open and things seem to be going well. She seemed quite confident and at ease with herself. But perhaps within a slightly broader context of this summer, we might have seen this coming because when we cast our minds back to last month's Olympics, she was also performing fairly well, but then she reached the semi-finals and played the Chinese player Zheng and really just kind of crumbled. And I think the real thing I take away from both the match with Pegula and with Zheng is the faults that she made. I feel like her opponent didn't necessarily do the damage to her, rather it was a bit more self-inflicted. I mean, this was really reflected by the number of unforced errors that Świątek had during the match. I mean, I think it was 44 to Pegula's 22, so it's a huge difference. So also a lot of double faults as well. So I think on the one hand, it's kind of reassuring that it is more Świątek defeating herself, as it were, than her opponent. I think maybe it would be slightly more worrying if there was a big rise in opponents and they were, even though she was at the top of her game, they were overtaking her. So that was my experience.
Right, and what could be the reason for this? I mean, are experts speculating already? Is Iga tired after the Olympics, or perhaps there's some other reasons at play?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say. She mentioned post the Pegula match in an interview, and she's talked about the pressure of being world #1. And she said that last year, being world #1, she really felt the weight of pressure to maintain being world #1. But then she said she moved into this year and she kind of put that to one side and she just focused on playing and sort of removed that anxiety. So that doesn't appear to be an issue, a sort of mental issue, as it were, psychological, let's say, because but on the other hand, when you're making a lot of unforced errors and double faults, that rather does suggest a psychological issue. Although I do take your point with fatigue, it's difficult to say because she seems to be moving about the court just as ably as she was previously. So I think perhaps there's a little psychological tweak that could be made by a coach or part of her team, which could push her back on top. And let's remember, she's still world #1.
That's right. And we're all very proud of her. But let me move on to the Paralympics taking place in Paris. Polish Paralympians are doing quite well. I would say perhaps better than the Polish representation during the Olympics. What could be the reason? Do you sort of...
Well, it's difficult to say.
Because there was much talk about the sort of, sports in Poland, right? The sort of the management and so on.
I see, yeah. Is it a systemic issue, etc.? I think sometimes we look a little bit too deeply into, have we got these major systemic issues? Do we need a revolution within the field of sports, etc.? Well, there certainly are issues on a systemic level in Poland. Things could certainly be done better. But I think a lot of countries would say similar things. I don't think it's very fair to directly compare the Paralympians with the Olympians themselves. The differ is chalk and cheese. So moving on to the Paralympians themselves, they are doing well. But actually in Tokyo, they haven't reached the same quantity of medals as yet. So in Tokyo, they hit 24 medals, and so far they're on 14. I mean, we've still got till Sunday, so they're still competing there. So, I mean, as it stands, it looks, I think a fair estimation would be that perhaps they would equal what they did in Tokyo in 2021.
So in your view, what are the names that we're all supposed to know?
Well, yeah, Kamil Otovsky is the outstanding name so far. He won gold in both the 50 and 100 metres backstroke, and in fact he could well be on for a third gold in the 200 metres freestyle. So he has certainly dominated the pool. And table tennis. Now, would say in the Paralympics, this is where Poland has its richest history. I think a lot of people, even those less familiar with sport, might be aware of Natalia Partyka, who is really a legend of Paralympics. She's won an enormous number of medals, and she first competed in the Paralympics, would you believe, at 11 years old, which was a record back in 2000. She won multiple gold medals. She was competing at this Paralympics. She's competed at the Olympics themselves, the able-bodied Olympics, and this time round she won silver in the singles and doubles. But really, she was eclipsed by Patryk Chojnowski, who won gold in both the singles and the doubles. So I'd say table tennis is certainly one of Poland's realms of dominance in the Paralympics.
Right, but there was also an incident, quite an unpleasant one, with one of the Polish Paralympians who was disqualified, right? Could you perhaps shed more light on this situation?
So this is Róża Kozakowska, and she competes in the club throw. So this is probably the equivalent to the shot put in the able-bodied Olympics. So what they do is they're kind of seated in a chair, and they throw a kind of wooden club directly over their heads. And obviously those who win are those who throw the club the furthest. Now, the controversy came about because she was sat in this chair, and she had a certain size. So when they're leaning back like this, they have a pillow under their head.
Right.
And her rivals questioned the size of this pillow. So she'd thrown the gold medal, the longest throw, and then it was called into question the size of this pillow, and subsequently she was eliminated.
Right, but these kind of things should be measured, right, and checked before the competition, not afterwards. I remember her being quite upset about this, and it is, you know, also very saddening thing.
It was a real roller coaster, because I mean she was really distraught, and in fact what actually happened was when she threw her gold medal throw, she injured herself in the process. She damaged to her shoulder, and so whilst she was getting over this injury, she was then hit with the double whammy of having the gold medal taken away from her. And it is particularly harsh, because you would say, did she really gain an unfair advantage by that?
Right.
Others would say rules are the rules, but it does seem rather harsh.
Absolutely. And on this note, we have to wrap up. Jon Carter, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching World Talks. Please tune in for more here on TVP World.